This week I'm doing most likeable teams. So who are the most likeable teams in the NRL? This is obviously completely subjective, depends a lot on who you follow or how old you are, because I know some people, for example, hate Manly because they just bought a lot of players in the 90s and stuff like that. But I'm going who I believe are the 5 most likeable teams. I'm leaving my West Tigers out of it because I'm obviously biased towards them, so I don't know what people's opinions are of them. And I'm also putting in my top 5 least favourite teams. So I hope you enjoy this. Comment down below if you agree or disagree with me, or who your most hated or most liked teams, apart from the team you support, are. Alright, most likeable teams. Number 5, I'm going the Titans. Purely because I think they're just a pretty harmless team. So I like them enough for them not to be in between hated and liked. I do like them. I like their players. I like some of their signings in the off-season. I like Holbrook as a coach. I like their stadium. I've been to their stadium a couple times. It's a nice place. And don't mind their colours. I know I'm saying some pretty random reasoning right now, but this is dead set what goes into it. But yeah, more importantly, they just haven't really done anything to piss anyone off, I don't think. They've been pretty irrelevant for most of their time in the NRL. They were pretty decent at the start with, Preston Campbell, Scott Prince and stuff. But they haven't really had a long enough history to forge any big rivalries or hatreds towards any fan bases, I'd say. So I think that would be a pretty regular pick in your top 5s. But they're my number 5. Number 4, I'm going to the Rabbitohs, which is probably controversial from a Tigers fan because Balmain and South, arguably one of the biggest rivalries in NRL history. But I do like the Rabbitohs, and my dad always says this: if the Tigers were for some reason be banned from the competition forever tomorrow, he'd probably start going for the Rabbitohs. They're just a likeable team, got a good fan base, classic jersey with the green and red, myrtle and green stripes. Wait, is the myrtle the green part or the red? I swear or is it myrtle and burgundy? Oh, I'm looking like a phony here, but I'm going to say myrtle and green, but I feel like the green could be called myrtle. I don't know, I'm getting confused, but yeah, green and red stripes for lack of a better term. So yeah, I just like them, like the way they play. I didn't like Supercoach Wayne Bennett, but I think I respect him a lot more now, the way he's coached the Rabbitohs. He lets them just play their natural game, which I highly respect. So they're my number 4. My number 3 is the New Zealand Warriors. Similar to the Titans, I think they're a pretty harmless team. Haven't been good for a while, and when they are good, they're very exciting. Usually play scintillating footy. They're stereotypically pretty big, pretty fast, like to throw the ball around, which is always good to watch. And yeah, that's basically enough said for the Warriors. Number 2, I've gone the Knights. I've been recently grinding the 257 Collective podcast. If you don't know, that's Connor Watson and Kalen Ponga's podcast. They get a lot of the other Knights boys involved as well. It's really cool. They just seem like a really cool bunch of guys, to be honest. I like the fact that they're in New South Wales, but they're outside of Sydney. They have their own little community there in Newcastle. They've got a cool stadium, a nice size. They get pretty solid attendance out, even at the worst of times. Good colours. Yeah, I just like their players. Likeable team. And yeah, I just think the Knights overall, I don't think they're easily hated, I'd say. And number 1, I've gone with the Raiders. The Canberra Raiders are my favourite team outside of the Tigers. I don't know why, I've just got an affinity with the Raiders. Ever since Blake Austin left from the Tigers to the Raiders, I've been a big fan of them. They do smash us pretty regularly, so I probably shouldn't like them as much as I do, but something about their green jersey, similar to the Newcastle team playing in ACT's not New South Wales, but you know what I mean. Not being a Queensland team, but not being in Sydney. They've got the Viking Club, they've got good fans, good sized stadium. It doesn't look empty, it looks full most times. I like watching the game at Canberra. I like Ricky Stewart's loose value, even though he reportedly abused Henry Perenara, which is pretty disgusting. So yeah, they're my most likeable team outside of the Tigers. Now moving on to my top 5 most hated teams. Now look, this is subjective and it can change week by week really. Any incident can change it. So if your team is mentioned, don't unsubscribe. Take it as a feather in your cap that I don't like your team because maybe they win too much or something like that. And feel free to hate me or the Tigers for me mentioning it. But here we go. Number 5, I'm going the Brisbane Broncos. A few reasons. Mainly, I used to live in Brisbane, so I'd go watch Brisbane, and they'd pretty much beat every team. I lived there between 2006 and 2013, and they pretty much made finals every single year then, and I think they actually did, and they used to just beat pretty much every team except for like the Storm, and on the odd occasion the Tigers would get up, but pretty rarely. So I didn't like them, as you usually don't like the teams that just win all the time. I also, when I think of Brisbane, I think of Queensland. As a New South Wales fan, I obviously hate that fact. A lot of Brisbane players often overlap into the Queensland side. I don't like that Brisbane has one team. I think it's pretty unfair when Sydney has 8 teams. So it's no surprise that they produced, or do they have 8 teams or do they have more? I actually don't know off the top of my head, but it's no surprise that they produce as much talent as they do, or you'd hope they do. So yeah, I can't lie. I'm not minding them being on the bottom right now or struggling. They won on the weekend, so they're not on the bottom of the ladder, but you know what I mean. But they are obviously good for the game. One of the biggest teams, biggest fan base in Australia, according to social media, I believe. So well done to the Broncos for that. But yeah, not the biggest fan of them. Number 4, I've got the Roosters. I think they would be in most people's top 5 hated. Obviously famous for being a very rich club. Can pretty much entice any player they want in the competition to go. Not suggesting they cheat the salary cap or anything, but it's a pretty attractive offer playing for the Roosters. You get to, have recovery sessions at Bondi and stuff like that. Live in the eastern suburbs. And yeah, I just don't... part of me respects their free agency, the way they go about it, but I just don't like... Especially it hurts that they got Teddy, but yeah, I just don't like the way they win so much, pretty much. That's what it boils down to. But yeah, I think my reasons for that is pretty understandable. Number 3, I've probably got a rogue one here. I don't reckon they're very hateable, but the Sharks. Something about the Sharks, when I watch them play, they're just like a bit of a rat pack. They've got a lot of loose units. Like last year, they used to have Dugan, Fafita, Ronaldo's one of the biggest grubs in the game. Hamlin Ueli, he's not that bad, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I think they're pretty grubby. Sean Johnson just does not fit in, I have to say, and Matt Moylan. Both of them are pretty clean-cut guys. And they're in a bunch of rats, like Talakai as well. He's a scary bloke. Oh, what's that other guy's name? Royce Hunt. They're all pretty big. They're all big. They're all scary. They're all tatted up. They just seem like a bit of a rat pack, and they always like to get into a few fights with the Tigers, and they also went through a phase where they'd just pick off Tigers players, which hurt to see, and they're also drug cheats, which I know they claim their innocence for that, but at the end of the day, they got suspended, so I think I can say that without getting cancelled. Number 2, I'm going the Panthers. This has probably only risen up in the last few years. I just think they come across as a very arrogant team. They're very good to watch, and I respect what they're doing there. I like, similar to Newcastle, they seem to have their own little community out in the western suburbs. They just get behind the Panthers. They get a healthy crowd to every game, so I respect that. But yeah, just not very likeable, especially from a Tigers fan. Actually, I probably should have them number 1, to be honest, after that bloody Ivan Cleary incident last year. I think that's the most angry I've ever been in NRL. From an NRL match, so I'm not the biggest fan of Ivan. I don't mind Nathan Cleary, although I feel for him with the shapes that his head is cutting. Actually, he polishes the turd pretty well. He's probably pulls well, and I shouldn't say that. He probably does well for himself, and he probably is a good-looking rooster at the end of the day. But yeah, Jerome Luai, Stephen Crichton, all of those guys, they're pretty aggressive the way they play. They're right on the edge, like Spencer Leniu, as we saw on Thursday night. I thought he was a bit of a dog. So yeah, and also they're good now, so that makes them easier to hate. But number 1, I'm going the Parramatta Eels. Something about just getting smashed by the Eels on Easter Monday, it just riles me up. I just don't like them. Mitchell Moses is a big factor behind that. He comes across very arrogant and not disrespectful. I'm sure he's a good bloke, but he just doesn't... I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I just don't like him. They also similarly have quite a few dogs in their team. I don't like Micah Sevo. I don't like Blake Ferguson. Michael Jennings is a drug cheat and used to play for them. And yeah, I just don't think that they're a very likeable team either. King Gutho, I respect him. But apart from that, Nathan Brown's absolute dog. So yeah, that's probably that. Weird segment, really. I've just turned about 40,000 plus on me, but oh well.
It's a miracle! Oh yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.